Who am I even? What really is the point of everything? And is it all even worth it in the end? This is a Roblox obby, and below the surface of these obbies you have this. So you wouldn't think that a Roblox obby could make you question your entire existence and memories. But this game immediately makes itself clear that this isn't just an obby. It's a mirror into your soul and memories, exploring your world and thoughts that you only get to live and remember once, depending on how you interpret the protagonist's story. So this is Who Am I? Immediately once you join, you spawn into a black empty void with nothing except your thoughts and a staircase along with 5 portals, leading to who, what, when, where, and why. But you also have a grey avatar, which resembles the protagonist that you're playing as. But who even is the protagonist? Well, we need to find that out by playing the game. So with no other choice, you proceed through the first portal because it's the only one you can go through. Immediately though, something doesn't feel quite right about this place. It's almost like it's beautiful, but there are multiple stages to it. Could this place perhaps resemble something such as the timeline of the protagonist's life? I mean, what else could it resemble? Well, the only way to find out is to continue. Moving on though, your only option is to go into welcome. You're welcome, but welcome into what? The only thing that exists here is you, your thoughts, and the parkour you have to complete, floating into this empty, never-ending void, calmingly, as if you're meant to sometimes question, who am I? Well, I mean, it seems like everything in every single corner of this game has a meaning behind it, so there must be more to this place. The difficulty of the gameplay is also extremely difficult for a beginner, which means that this either could be a difficult time in the protagonist's life, or could it potentially just be the very beginning of life as it is. Hence you're into this place of empty void with 0 memories and nothing to it, which you will never remember, because you were just born. Well, it will make more sense soon, since you are playing the protagonist after all, resembling how you are the only person in control of yourself into this empty void, to interpret it however you wish and to re-evaluate your real self. But it feels like there's always something to explore and find out within yourself, whatever way you might interpret this, so I immediately calmed down and purely just enjoyed the moment and the music, even though these jumps were quite difficult. But that makes this obby even better, because difficulty doesn't just mean difficulty, it has a much deeper meaning behind it. And as I continue to progress further, the thoughts continue to fill my mind up with what everything could mean, until I got to the end of the stage and read Welcome Home. Home is everyone's safe place for their entire lives. So could this really just be the beginning of the protagonist's life? Or could this game resemble much more than just life as we know it? Well, the only option is to keep going. And it's like this game is meant to fill your mind with subliminal thoughts, since I may be overthinking a Roblox game, but this atmosphere really makes you wander into thoughts beyond what could be explainable. And immediately as you go through this portal, you're brought into fun. A huge playground section, bringing back all the memories you've developed over the years as a child. This really made me think of everything, because it's starting to all make sense now. It looks and feels like this will really be the timeline of the protagonist's life, but it's bound to be much more than that. We're only at the start after all, and everybody's thought process, interpretation, and the life is completely different. Although the entirety of this game really feels like you're in some backroom subliminal kind of space that makes you feel entirely different, even though you're just playing a game after all, but that's the point. This isn't just a simple game anymore. This is who you are. How you interpret everything could possibly describe you. This is a game made to explore your true inner self with just your thoughts, depending on how you interpret what the protagonist is going through, whether it's disturbing or exciting. However, the next part really isn't so exciting, since, yeah, you just suddenly experience a flash from brightful colors to this dark place. The gameplay in this section also becomes much more difficult compared to the rest. Plus, looking around, it looks like these are gravestones. And whilst you're still just a child as the protagonist, it doesn't mean you can't go through difficult times in life that could potentially traumatize you for the rest of your life, which could come out of nowhere. Could a family member have maybe died for the protagonist? Or maybe somebody that the protagonist was close to? Well, we don't exactly know that, but this obby is clearly trying to tell a much deeper story that you're meant to figure out. I mean, it would only make sense. Life really feels unfair a lot of times. However, the only way to push through it is to just keep going. Keyword, keep going. It really seems like somebody that the protagonist was close to could possibly have died, because not giving up and continuing to go on with your life is the only way you can overcome the tragic death of somebody. And indeed, the game turns back to the original playground style quickly after this section. But it's not over yet, because quickly after you get through the gravestone section, there is another section which seems to resemble a funeral with much more difficult gameplay, resembling this dark time of the protagonist's life. So it's clear that the protagonist isn't going through anything grateful right now, but again, the only option is to keep going. You can't just give up. However, just before you proceed further, you notice this. All is temporary. We're all here temporarily, nothing really lasts forever. So could the protagonist have learned this after the loss of a beloved one? I mean, it would only make sense, sadly. However, it's something that everybody has to eventually go through. Nothing really lasts forever. We're all eventually going to be gone, the same way. And there sadly isn't much to do except to keep going despite how difficult it might be. The next section, however, is called Position, and whilst I can't clearly make up what this section could exactly refer to for the protagonist, the best theory I've come up with is that this is either your house or school that you go to, since it's all safety netted and there is no void below you, so this place most likely resembles when the protagonist grows up towards adulthood. Just like everybody else despite a tough upbringing. It's not really obvious, but it's clearly trying to resemble something. And it will all make sense in just a minute, because after you get past this section with some difficult gameplay that's all safety netted, you then get to this button which you have to click to open a gate in front of you. But did you notice that when you click the button for just a split second, you can see eyes staring at you as the gate opens? Could this be the gate to adulthood once you finally become an adult and have to start a job? Well, yeah, the next section has a huge portal that says work harder, and as soon as you go into the next section, your avatar also changes to a businessman. But then there is the eyes. What could those mean? Wait, they're also behind you? What is this? Why would there be eyes staring at you all the time? Well, it all makes sense. It's because you're now an adult that has to actually work a job. And you're never free, you're being controlled by the world, and you have to rely on others in order to get somewhere with your life. It's disturbing if you think about it from the protagonist's side. It feels like everybody is staring at you and expecting better of you. But everybody goes through this, right? Well, you're correct. Which is why this next section becomes more difficult the further you get up the pyramid in your business costume. And now your only goal is to reach the work harder portal. Because all of your work will eventually pay off if you work hard enough, right? So your only choice is to keep going with your life like this, because surely you just have to endure this lifestyle for a while until it will 100% pay off and you'll be set for the rest of your life, right? Well, the further you go up and the harder you work for your goals from the protagonist's side, the more stressful and unbearable it gets. Hence, every single section gets darker and darker and darker until you just can't take it anymore. This isn't worth it. There is no point. What the hell was all of that? I mean, that wasn't present at all, was it? Was giving up and failing at your job worth it just because it's too much to handle? I mean, only time will tell, right? You shouldn't have to push yourself to your absolute limits, but instead, work on your real passion, on what you actually enjoy to do. Passion. Passion is the only way to get back up and reach a new highest point of fulfillment in life for the protagonist. I mean, what else is there left? Working harder than work? Maybe your true passion is what you really need to focus on. And it's never too late, is it? So despite the gameplay being difficult, resembling how even your passion requires work to be put into it for something to work out, it's not dark anymore, it's bright and exciting because this is the protagonist's passion. This is what the protagonist needed to have worked on since the very beginning. But again, it's never too late, so this is clearly what needed to be done. And as you keep going on with your passion that you truly enjoy, something always goes wrong and you slip right off. I mean, you're bound to make mistakes. However, you can run from your mistakes and get back up. It's impossible to get anywhere without making mistakes on the way. You should never have had to push yourself so hard and work perfectly. Hence, you don't actually fall off all the way down when you make a mistake, but you instead run from it and get further up, which is what I believe this entire part is trying to resemble for the protagonist, and for you to reflect upon yourself with. I mean, it all makes sense once again the more you look at everything within this obby, because everything has a meaning behind it. But it's not over yet. As your character begins to reflect more brightly once you proceed further into this cave, perhaps the protagonist has found true love for the first time in their life. I mean, there is a beating heart with a portal that says never forget, so wouldn't that make sense? Well, it depends on how you interpret it. I can't really tell what this part is trying to say, sadly, because as soon as you go into the portal, you proceed into a drift. A drift into what? This place clearly isn't trying to be exciting, but rather it makes you feel lost in your thoughts completely. It absolutely breaks the entire story you've thought of until this point. Perhaps could this be a reference to an addiction that you're going through, which is ruining your life despite previously getting on the correct path in your life? I mean, it would only make sense because the killblicks throughout this entire section heavily begin to harm you, but it's extremely difficult to avoid them at the same time. And there are also many rows of beds, which could maybe refer to having difficult nights overcoming something into your life that's heavily affecting you, just like an addiction would. Well, we can't really know for sure, but it really does seem that way. However, the more you avoid the damage and the more you try to get past each section, the further you get, which could mean that the only way to get through this addiction or dark time in your life is to maybe just keep going and pushing through everything to finally get over anything that might be going on, since it's the only theory that really makes sense for me after all. Because as soon as you finally push through everything and reach the end of this difficult section, you're met with a ghostly figure that tells you everything will be okay, along with a portal text which says, "I wanna go home." So, because that's all followed by the next part being a sunset, maybe referencing to finally getting over everything, could this really be what it all meant, just overcoming a difficult addiction into your life? Well, I've tried to think of what this could really mean for a while, and whilst I was able to come up with a few things that this could have really meant, nothing really truly makes as much sense as everything else did up until this point. But perhaps that's because this goes beyond what my mind could comprehend at this point. Maybe there is no answer to ever truly be found after all, because not everything has an answer, so it's now your turn to attempt to find the answer. I highly recommend you play the game yourself, which is found in the description. However, this game is still into its work in progress phase, and this is sadly the end of everything for now.